13 speed for gravel. SRAM has it coming. Campagnolo has had it for 4 years since it rolled out the Ekar group. And now the new Ekar GT is a slightly more affordable version of that mechanical 13 speed group. I'm here in Fort Collins, Colorado to test this group at FoCo Fondo, which starts in about 30 minutes. I need to get going. Got the Basso Palta bike with some Ultradynamico tires. There's no sidewall protection on these tires. We'll see how the tires and 13 speed group and the rider go. Come along for the ride at FoCo Fondo. FoCo Fondo starts basically downtown Fort Collins, which is sweet. And that is super easy to get to. The actual start is at New Belgium Brewery, home of Fat Tire, etc. Which is about a, 3-minute bike ride from downtown. Staging's in 6 minutes. Let's go. Espresso on site, gotta love it. Look out, here comes the party police. FoCo Fondo 2024 was a hoot as always. I want to talk about the group, the bike, the tires, the wheels, but let's put it all in context of the event itself. This video is supported by you. Got hats back in stock, and after you watch this video, head over to my site, theride.bike, and buy 1 or 6. You know, I've been to wind tunnels all over the world, Indy, Cali, North Carolina, Germany, France, and I can guarantee you that this hat will get you nowhere 6 to 10% faster than the other leading caps. Science. Okay, let's talk FoCo Fondo. 5 different distances so you can get in where you fit in. I did the Fundy Hundy today. Love the distance. The course, it rained last night, so the course was perfect. Conditions were perfect. You know, it's pretty hot now, but this morning was nice and cool. Most of the dust was tamped down. There was 200 or so in the 100. There's also the 118, the premier distance, which was won by Griffin Easter and Lauren Stevens. Nice work, fast folks. There's also a bunch of different distances that step all the way down to a 12-mile Safe Routes for Schools edition. So lots of good options, and they all start and finish here at New Belgium, Fort Collins, home of Fat Tire, Voodoo Ranger, etc., etc. I'm on one of the many courses that is set up for weekday racing. So completely separate from FoCo Fondo, the New Belgium campus hosts all kinds of weekday racing, including a lot of different kids racing. So it's a bike-friendly scene up here in Fort Collins and in general, and at New Belgium in particular. Race organizers Whitney and Zach Allison do a spectacular job with a number of things, and safety and aid stations are chief among them. You know, I very much appreciated having a lead moto today who would stop traffic. I realize there's not a moto for every group of riders, but for the front of the 100 race, that was very much appreciated. What was in place for all the riders were police at the very few busy intersections, stopping traffic, marshaling traffic, and then a lot of volunteer marshals at some of the other intersections where there was a potential for cars. But for the most part, the event is just way out where there basically is zero traffic, so that makes for a positive experience. Secondly, shout out to everybody working the aid stations. That makes a huge difference. I grabbed a full bottle at one of the, I think it was the first one, run by Trek. Thanks, Trek. Appreciate y'all. And now as folks are coming back in, finishing up the day, including a man in a suit jacket. Hey! So folks are finishing up here. High fives, get a cold towel, go get some lunch. Turns out there's probably some beer on tap at New Belgium. Got live music going, and then awards, etc., etc. So it's just a great place to hang out with the family and friends after participating in the Stretchy Pants festivities. I'm having an athletic beer now. It's off-brand. Shh, don't tell. New Belgium. have to say, the chugability of these elite bottles, I appreciate. The graphics wear off as soon as you look at the things, and they feel like almost flimsy in the hand, but you can also just pound these things like I just pounded that non-alcoholic beer. So that I appreciate for gravel, when most of the time you want to have your hands on the handlebar. So being able to take a quick swig and pound, you know, up to a liter, if you can chug that much, is a good thing. Started the day with 2 tall boys with the EFS Pro, the high carb, in the bottles. Had those 2, a few gels, and that was enough for 100 miles, plus the aforementioned hand-up bottle from the folks at the Trek Aid station. All right, let's talk pros and cons of the bits and bobs, starting with the group. Got the announcer in the back. Hopefully that sound isn't too overwhelming for you. Ekar GT, the second tier group. GT is Gran Turismo. When Campy rolled out the Ekar 13-speed group in 2020, it was the lightest gravel group on the market. This group is a little bit cheaper and a little bit heavier. 13-speed, mechanical. What is new is the big cassette. You got a 1048 back there, and you can go down to a 36. This is a 40 ring, but previously the smallest ring was a 38. Now it goes down to 36. I used the 40-48 just once today for 10 to 15 seconds, but it was a vital 10 to 15 seconds on a particularly steep bit of 2-track. I'm sure I could have lumbered along with a bigger gear, but it was nice to have that option. The 40-10 was adequate for my efforts today. If I had been doing the longer distance and having more fast downhill, I would have been spun out, I'm sure, in the 40-10. But for today's mostly flat affair, 100 miles, 200 feet of climbing or so, 40-10 was okay. Shifting, you guys know how Campy works, right? The index finger takes it up the cassette, and the thumb shifter dumps it down the cassette. They've added a little hook. You know, they did this with the original Ekar. You saw it on some of Caleb Ewan's sprint shifters in the tour a few years back. So it's a little bit easier to shift with your thumb when in the drops, but it's still a reach, you know? So in my book, it's okay ergonomics. Thank you. Nice meeting many of you all out here at FoCo Fondo. Appreciate that. The shifting is, in Campy's tradition, still fiddly. You know, the mechanical shifting works fine, but the cables do stretch, and you know, every so often you have to tune it up a bit. Today, I experienced a couple small little foibles. One was a couple times when I was shifting quickly, it would seem to get jammed when I was trying to dump it all the way down to it at the 10, and I'd have to move up a cog before I could push it all the way down. I don't know why that was. That happened a few times. And the other is sometimes when you're moving it up, it doesn't go all the way, so you just have to kind of finesse it. It's, I guess, you know, people like to compare it to driving a stick, where it's a manual process. So works fine. It's not flawless, but works fine. So now you've got 4 cassette options in the Ekar cassette family. This 1048 is the widest range. There's also a 1044. Both of these Campy pegs is adventure. And then you've got 936 and 932 cassettes, which Campy calls race. You can do whatever you want with any of these cassettes, but when I'm doing racing, FoCo Fondo, second distance, amateur recreational racing, I like having a range of gears, you know? So I think this 1048 is a good option for whatever type of riding you like to do, because a range of gears is good. Calipers, chain, brakes are the same as the Ekar group. The braking, I love. If you guys have watched some of my videos on previous Campy stuff, you know I'm a fan of Campy. Both the sculpted shaping of the levers feels good in the hand, and then just the power of the braking feels good. There's big, thick steel rotors. I don't know how much of the good braking is the thickness of the rotor or the brake pad compound or the lever ergonomics, but the whole package feels good. Nice, strong, easy to modulate, good setup. So that's clear positive. The biggest meh in my book is the price for a second tier mechanical group. It just doesn't compete with some of the other options out there. Let me just rattle off some pricing here for you. And yes, this may change depending on what market you're in or what time of year it is. I'm hesitant to even list pricing because it changes so often these days, but as of July 2024, we're looking at 1,600 bucks for the Ekar GT group, 1,500 euros. Compare that to the latest Shimano GRX 1x12 speed group, mechanical also, where you've got a 1051 cassette in the back. That's $100 cheaper, 1,500 bucks. The weight of that Shimano group is 2,830 grams. This guy is 2,700 grams, so in a similar ballpark. Other prices: SRAM Apex Axis, that's the electronic version, 1,200 bucks or 1,400 euros. The Apex mechanical group, 990 bucks or 1,200 euros, so substantially cheaper. And yes, the Apex is fourth tier, but SRAM's got so many different groups, and the functionality is at least on par of that fourth group versus this second group. And honestly, in my experience, the shifting of Apex versus this is better. So it's a lot cheaper and it's better performing. Yeah, the braking on Campy is a little bit better, but then SRAM's third tier group, Rival Axis, you can get with a power meter for 1,400 bucks or 1,450 euros. So Campy's lagging in the price competition. Homeboy's got a full-on cooler on the back there. Hey, I do not have a cooler on the back of my bike. I appreciate and partake in the aid stations. Basso Palta, new to me. Again, everything's a mixed bag, right? One person's integrated as another person's incompatible. You've got the internal routing through the bar, the stem down here. It looks cool. Functionality was not great in my experience. Starting with the headset, it was very, very small window of being too loose, so it was rattly, or so tight that there was friction steering. So having a company design not just the bar stem, but also the headset, I came away less than impressed on that front. Relatively comfortable ride. 71 puts it pretty, hey. 71 head tube puts it, kind of straight up the middle, gravel geometry. Bit of flex perhaps in the carbon post, which is Basso's own design. But my primary beef with the Basso stem and bar was that it made it difficult to put a computer mount on there. When I first went to put a Wahoo mount on, there was not enough clearance. Went to put a K-edge, which is skinnier, still not enough clearance. It kind of scratched the bar up trying to put it on there. Luckily, Silca makes a chisella, which you can mount on either the top or the bottom two bolts. So that's what I put on here. And luckily there was a DJI mount still on there. I say luckily because I started the day intending to ride with a chesty so I could shoot the visuals of the cockpit while riding. I had that under my jersey, got to the start with the camera in my pocket, went to, unzip my jersey, went to clip this on and realized, oh, I'm missing the key clip-on piece. Knucklehead, it's always something with me, but luckily there was a mount already on the bottom of this Gisela, so Bob's your uncle. Also, Chris Stuart had a GoPro on his bike, so some of the footage looking at me is from Chris. Thanks for that, Chris. One thing that I was digging about the bike is a little T25 tool in the back. So, should you need to fuss with the bolts here, need a 4mm for the preload, but you've got this little tool here. Not that I'd buy a bike for a tiny little tool, but it's a cool little thing. Yo! Get back on there. There we go. I think the paint job looks sweet. The Ekar GT also comes with metal cranks, whereas the Ekar has carbon. No power meter options, so I'm continuing to run the Asiamo Pro MX power meter pedals, which in my experience or the best option out there on the market, better than the SRAM and certainly better than the Garmin Rally. I think it would be a lot cooler to just have an integrated meter though, so SRAM there continues to lead the way with its integrated quirk, not option, but options. Wheels and tires. The tires, Ultradynamico. My bias, my perception of these things was in the tragically hip category. Made by Panaracer, the website leans heavy into the aesthetics of the tire, or the tires, I should say, which is fine, and they definitely have a distinctive look, not just the tan sidewalls, but the various tread patterns. They also go big on the suppleness, this souplesse, because there's no sidewall protection. So yes, they feel good. I still don't think that they're quite as buttery smooth as my faves, the Schwalbe G1 RS, and they're certainly not as robust as the good old Pathfinder Pros or the Maxxis Ramblers, but you know, I gotta try the things out. Had no flats, no whammies today. I put Silka's sealant in there, front and rear, which has some recycled carbon flakes in there. It looks like dog hair. It's not dog hair. There may be a little dog hair in there, but yeah, carbon flakes in there, and Silka says it can seal holes up to 6 mil or something like this. In any event, had no issues, no whammies. I'm looking at the back of the seat post. You know, sometimes you finish a ride or a race and you're like, oh yeah, I must have hit something and the sealant took care of it. I think there's just mud splatter from today. In any event, we got a rosé up front, a bitier tire, and then the Cava rear, which is not a full slick, but pretty darn close. And I definitely got a little loose in some of the corners. It's always funny for me following Jake McGee around corners. Jake grew up racing flat track motos in Australia, and he's perfectly comfortable with having his wheels drifting around. I, however, am not. I get my shoulders up in my ears when my wheels start to slide, but it's a relatively fast tire. I say that not based on just my experience, but because I dork out, as many of you do, bicyclerollingresistance.com. I'm a member there. A lot of good data in terms of rolling resistance, various width, comparative data, and then puncture ratings for both the tread and the sidewall. Ultradynamico would be the first to tell you, hey, if you're looking for a super robust tire, this is not it. In fact, the copy on the site for this Cava race, there's 2 different models, one with protection and one without. The race is without. Copy for this Cava race says, if you are the type of person that flats a lot, do not buy this tire. And I was like, are they talking to me? I flat a lot. I didn't flat this. But just based on feel, yeah, it feels fast, it feels supple. You know, I still like my Schwalbe G1s, RSs, because the feel is great, not just the sidewall, but the tread, I think. Again, this is just totally subjective feel, but I think the Schwalbe tread has a bit more give to it, and there's like a little bit of shoulder knob. So if and when I start to get a little drifty in the corners, there's a little bit of bite. Whereas here, if it starts to go, you're just relying on your hips and skill or lack thereof to save the day. Speaking of aesthetics, wheels with this tri-spoke pattern. Zonda GT is 23 mil internal. It's a metal rim, 900 bucks. It's fine. It was non-issue. I actually didn't think about the wheels at all. Not much of an aero story, but a decent price story. And 23 is in the ballpark for gravel. The G23 Envy's internal rim width named wheel was one of the first gravel specific wheels with that 23 mil, and now 25 is kind of standard, and some are going a little or a lot bigger than that. So yeah, good option, and if you like the campy aesthetic, certainly a good way to go. So that's it for me from FoCo Fondo 2024. I'm gonna get out of here. It's my 23rd wedding anniversary of the beautiful wife I've been smooching on since we were 11 years old back in the Jefferson Middle School stairwell in Albuquerque, New Mexico. So I'm gonna go spend some time with my wife. Let me know what questions you have, and I will do my best to answer them. If you have not done FoCo Fondo, I absolutely love this race and encourage you to get up here to Fort Collins and do it when you can. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for going to my website and buying a hat. As I said, I guarantee that this hat will get you nowhere 4 to 6% faster than the other leading caps. And whether you buy a hat or not, just get out there, and enjoy the ride.